I've always said, you know, when you're in the restaurant business, you either love it or you hate it. There's really no in between. We were very respectful of culture, family, and food.
So hey everybody, we are Cooks Who Care, and we have a very special episode to bring to you to talk to people behind the scenes. And today I have Joe Brandolo, who is going to talk about his expertise, a little bit about spirits and wine and food, and his passion for the slow food movement and sustainability. And gosh, the list goes on for how many things he is interested in. What it all revolves around is impact and how other people can get involved in revitalizing communities or just getting connected to each other. We always say that everything we do is beyond your title. It's more than that. You have the power to do something in your community actively, and I think Joe is a great example of that. So I hope it inspires you to go beyond what you currently do in your job and give purpose to what you do every day, and maybe you want to get connected with Joe in the future.
My name is Joe Brandolo. My company is Urban Earth Events, and Urban Earth Events is sort of a product of probably all of the chapters that have become part of my culinary career. The space here is FAME, F-A-M-E, which is sort of an acronym for Feast Your Eyes, is association with Macon. Feast Your Eyes is a caterer, probably one of the most prominent caterers in Philadelphia. It's Lynn Bono, it's with Skip Schwartzman. They have a second property front in Palmer. And they do a lot of off-premise catering, so I'll give them a little pitch. Very good friends and very talented people, and people that I've known back since they probably started back in the early 1980s. My career started back in the late 1970s in Atlanta. I worked in two restaurants that have an interesting history. One was actually busted for selling drugs. The valets were selling drugs out in the parking lot. So there was a big federal sting there. Second one was an interesting restaurant because I had a chance to wait on people like Loretta Swit and Burt Bacharach and Don Knotts. And one day I came to work and the chef had barricaded himself in the kitchen and was holding his wife hostage. And so they took him out in handcuffs, and I don't even remember who cooked that night, but that was an interesting circumstance too. So Atlanta was kind of a circus, and that was my baptism by fire in the restaurant business. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. I think I might like to do this for a while anyway. Yeah. So what I've learned through slow food was that slow food is a lifestyle. Slow food movement, you know, I'll give you the short history. It was started in the late 1970s, started by a journalist and a couple of his friends in Italy. And it was all about the changes that were happening in Europe. And, you know, Carlo Petrini, the journalist, felt that that as Europe changed, as it began to look more to be westernized, it was losing its identity. And those of us that go to Tuscany to eat pasta and drink wine. Mm-hmm. And if there was nobody making wine and there's nobody making pasta, why are you going to go to Tuscany? So if they lost their tourism, they lost a lot of their economy. And so he was able to, along with, like I said, his counterparts, and being a journalist, he was able to spread his message. He was able to get young people back interested in their traditional careers. Mm-hmm. And he was also wanting to say, okay, look, you know, we need to have, you know, everything revolves around the table. Yeah. You know, family revolves around the table. You know, what we learn as children growing up, you know, happens in a family environment. And so he was really wanting to focus on that and focus on that particular lifestyle.
Tell me why you care so deeply. Like, I feel like there's always this unifying message with all the things you're involved in, that there's this compelling passion, whether it's justice, maybe justice is the piece of it. Why is it that you spend and consume your energy to these facets of helping the community? Why is it important to you?
Well, it's important in one aspect because it's where I came from. I am second generation from Italian immigrants. So my grandparents all came from Italy, and I grew up in a small Italian neighborhood in Manayunk. So we were very respectful of culture, family, and food, and knowing, so that was sort of a basis. I can remember, I always say I remember Mr. Petticone, who had a goat and some chickens in his own backyard in a little yard in Manayunk. So I grew up with that as my sort of education as a kid. Went to the farm school up in Henry Saul Farm School for summer programs, for summer camp. And don't ask me why, it just happened that way. It just evolved that way. It was something that happened, and I enjoyed it, and it was a part of my life.
So what's the feeling that you derive when you do it?
A satisfaction that I feel like I've accomplished something. In my case, I've seen success stories. I've also, having been an entrepreneur, I see opportunity, and I always want to look at that opportunity as, how can we build on that opportunity to take it somewhere else. So, I probably, I'm one of those people that my brain works faster sometimes than.
I hear you.
So it's like, okay, so we're working on this project now, and so that the satisfaction of being able to put something like that, something together, and see it to fruition, and see the benefits that that result from that. I think it's just personally rewarding. You have to at some point you have to make a commitment, a life commitment. So in my case, it was a matter of, I found a property, found a house, a home in New Jersey where I knew I could create a garden. I could plant trees and watch my fruit trees grow. But there were conscious decisions of, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do it, and do it. And I think that's sometimes, I talk to people and they say, I'd love to keep bees, and I'd be like, it's really easy. You can buy the kit, and there's plenty of mail order places that'll send you a kit, and they'll send you all the things that you need, the suit, the smoker, the whole. And I said, and it's not a lot of work. The bees they're insects. They know what to do. You just got to help them out a little bit, and they find their way to do what they need to do, and you get the benefit of harvesting the honey twice a year. So, so I think in some ways you have to make a conscious effort to want to be able to do those things, and make time to be able to do those things. The things that happen, projects that I become involved in. This project, for example, where we're partners with Impact Services, which I'm a board member of, those are projects that I don't really consider them work. They're just part of my life. And if they weren't part of my life, I don't know if I'd be completely satisfied in my life. So so I've sort of incorporated them in my life. So I don't define them as work. I just define them as my lifestyle. What we're in the process of being able to do is to convince them that we can use this space to do a fundraiser, and that fundraiser would have a campaign that would bring those restaurateurs here to this facility, and let them get a bird's eye view of what the community is really like, that there are these different populations, that they need to be aware of that. Because oftentimes once gentrification comes into a neighborhood, gentrification pushes, just relocates people. And we don't want to relocate them. We want to be able to provide some type of support system, that would, be counseling and job training and job placement for those people.
And empower them.
And empower them, exactly. So Urban Earth Events, the company that I've sort of put together, as I said, I've been a brand ambassador for a whiskey company, I've been a wine salesman, I know pretty much every restaurateur in the city. It's a great way for me to connect with all of those people and get them to say, hey, look, we'd like you to come out. Earlier we saw Dean at Rowhouse, and we saw the Bartons, who own Philadelphia Brewing. These are very, very generous people, have no problem devoting their time and their energy to come out and support good causes, and definitely people that really want to support Kensington. So I think that it's going to be in May. We'll have an interesting collaboration that will bring all of these people together, and we'll have a great walk around culinary food and spirit event. Not so much spirit and wine, but a spirit event, because we've got all these great distilleries in Kensington. So as a Philadelphian, a lifetime Philadelphian, I saw the factories that closed. I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood in Manayunk where people in that community worked in factories, Tasty Cake and Bud Company, and those factories closed. And people, jobs when I graduated high school, the jobs that their parents had weren't there anymore. And so, we had, our choices were different. Our parents could work in factories most of their lives and collect the benefits and the pension plan, and that infrastructure really disappeared, and it disappeared here in Kensington. This is really a story that really defines Philadelphia, about how there was a lot of major industry here, and a lot of that industry was centered right here in Kensington. And there are these factory buildings, much like this building here in Macon, that still exist, that can be repurposed and repurposed for some interesting projects. I mean, there's the studios that's further down in closer to Fishtown. There's a movie studio there. So there is this. You can affect change. What we want to make sure that as we affect change, and that's why M2 management is part of this. Is as we affect change, we want to be able to bring everybody together. This isn't. We want to throw the net out and bring everybody together on this. This is just not a project that's going to survive without collaboration.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate this.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. Thanks.